Welcome to the show Gold Squadron Gays. It's the podcast where two Star Wars loving gays talk about and review their favorite Star Wars content while also being gay as hell. I'm your host, Bradley Brower.
I'm your other host, Charles Rogers, and insert topical joke here. We don't know when this episode's
Oh yeah. Things happened in past news.
Yeah,
we know about
the things that were happening.
All the trailers and news
happened.
That dropped. We know all about it.
Happened, yeah. This episode should be coming out, let me look, April the 29th. We are recording it on February 18th.
That was a great Bad Batch finale, Charles. I think everybody at home thoroughly enjoyed the season 3 finale.
Actually, the finale is airing this week.
Oh, that's right. I have it airing right before the finale, so you're right.
Yes.
We don't know what's going to happen.
We cheated. We extremely cheated with our schedule.
Right.
Because if you weren't following us on the journey, we finished Ahsoka, and then we went back and finished Vision Season 1, that we had to pause in the middle of the SAG-AFTRA strike. And now we're about to hop into Bad Batch, or in the future, as of recording this, we're about to hop into the Bad Batch.
That's right. So it's going to be a great season.
Yeah, it has been a great season that we have currently watched. No, we have no idea what's going to happen in this show.
Which is why we're recording now.
Yeah, we have literally no idea what's going to happen in the show because they haven't told us shit.
Okay, so let's already jump into that.
Okay, yeah. Can I complain about this?
Yes.
This is already... So, the things we have currently gotten for the Bad Batch, as near as I can tell, and there may be a thing that I have missed, but for the Bad Batch Season 3, we got a teaser trailer at Celebration London. We got the actual trailer, which dropped like 2 or 3 weeks ago. We got one exclusive clip from the first episode. We got an interview, and we got the announcement on StarWars.com, and that's it. That is literally all we have. The show is premiering in like 3 days. There has been no marketing for this show beyond what I just said that I have been able to find that's been official from Lucasfilm. What the fuck?
Do you think there's a reason though? Like
I think they just dropped the ball.
Yeah.
I think truthfully they just dropped the ball hard with this. For whatever reason, whether it was, surrounding the strikes a couple of months ago, threw everything into disarray, whether they had to do a lot of marketing for Ahsoka because they did a lot of marketing for Ahsoka. Now they're doing... We also haven't seen anything for the Acolyte. Like, the Acolyte's supposed to be, as of recording this, when I say these words, what we know is that the Acolyte's supposed to be coming out in the summer. We've heard rumblings, but we haven't really heard a lot about the Acolyte. Like, we have no teaser, we have no official images, we have nothing, and we're, 4 or 5 months out from that. But there's at least discussions of it. Like, it's coming up. Bad Batch, I feel like they didn't give us anything at all. And it's such a weird choice given how much effort goes into this show. That they're just like, now the trailers and stuff that we got were like jam-packed with interesting stuff, but we haven't gotten a whole lot yet. And I've been seeing like little bits of interviews floating around and things, but nothing really substantial. I don't know. I'm a little annoyed by how little marketing they've done for the third season of this show.
The third and final season.
The third and final, because that's also the thing. It's
right.
The conclusion of the story that they're... I do not know. I genuinely do not know why they haven't barely given us anything.
Yeah, I mean, my only semi theory, if benefit of the doubt, there's just too much good stuff to like reveal, and they just really they can't like do a trailer without showing every fucking reveal, because I don't know, that's my only guess. But then like my other problem is that if that's the case, then why did you send out screeners of the first 8 episodes? That's a fuck ton of episodes. That's half.
We didn't get those screeners, by the way. Just heads up, people, we're not putting on a bit. We have not seen the screeners. We genuinely do not know what's in the show.
Right. But it's like, but people do. So
right.
That's what I'm confused about, because that's a majority of the show, if not the whole entire season, other than a few, the last
it's like
half of
54% of it.
Yeah.
54% of the season.
That's wild. Like, that's a lot. That tells you most of everything. I mean, for the most part. So yeah, it's interesting. From a few interviews I've seen, like the way it's like broken down, at least in the first 8, is like, the the first three is like its own self-contained story, which that's not shocking. And then, the rest is going to be either individual stuff or, set up for the quote unquote latter half of the season or the finale of the season, which will be like the last couple episodes, which again, I'm not surprised. And then also, we do know that in the way that some of the episodes are broken up, I believe that because we know the air dates of all the episodes, that some of them
And the
are
titles.
double, yeah, and some of them are double releases. So
Just the first three. So the way it's going to break down is that the first three episodes are going to all premiere on February the 21st, which is 3 days from now. So they're all going to premiere, and then no, nope, I'm wrong here. I can't read. My eyeballs don't work. Episodes 6 and 7, Infiltration and Extraction,
right.
will both air on March the 13th, and episodes 10 and 11, Identity Crisis and Point of No Return, will air on April the 3rd.
Right. So, and that's what I mean. Like, we know that at least the first eight it's probably going to be its own semi self-contained with the mid-series finale. Yeah, 6 and 7 will be kind of like a mid-season finale-ish. And then maybe 8 and 9 might be a self-contained kind of like episodes. And then 10, 11 will be kind of like the kickoff to the post finale, I guess you'll say, like of the latter half. Because I don't think in history of this show, they haven't done double episodes like that, except because I just finished season 2 yesterday to recap everything. And there was just that mid-season finale, which was the 2 episodes. And then that was pretty much it. Like then there was the rest of the series. Like it wasn't like a weird, here's 2 mid-season finales in the middle of the show, which I think is interesting.
Yeah, let's see if they've done this before. Yeah, the mid-season finale that they did, so Clone Conspiracy and Truth and Consequences, which were the Coruscant episodes, and
Right.
then the finale, which was the Summit and Plan 99.
Okay, then that's norm. That seems normal to me. What doesn't seem normal to me is the 2 mid-season finales and then just a singular episode as the finale on well, as of this recording, it'll be on May 1st for season 3.
Yes,
So
as of this recording, we have no
it'll be
idea what's
this
going to happen in the finale.
it'll be this week if you're listening to
Yep,
this episode.
provided this episode comes out when is
When
actually
we say
on our
we're gonna
schedule,
release
which
it, right.
who the fuck knows if that's going to happen.
Right.
We never fucking know with the schedule.
Yeah. So it's very interesting. Do you have the titles pulled up? I don't have the
I
titles pulled up.
do. I
Okay, can you
do.
run through them? I want to like
So
speculate.
we'll get to the part of the episode where we're actually speculating. Actually, before we get into speculating on this season, Bradley, you just watched season 2.
Yes.
Do you want to give us a little last time on the Bad Batch?
Oh, okay, sure. Previously on The Bad Batch. Omega, I'm just kidding. So I was watching it. Actually, what's funny is I was telling my friend, I was like, oh, the season 3 is gonna premiere on Wednesday this week as of this recording. And you need to recap, like you need to rewatch season 2. And then after I had just finished watching season 2, I was like, actually, you don't need to watch the whole thing. And I'll give you the episodes you need to watch because rewatching season 2, I was like, oh, I don't think half of this is good. Like rewatching it, I was like, oh, like this is not great. I don't like this season actually, now that I'm rewatching it. And I was like, that was really weird feeling to rewatch it and go, ooh. Now, the episodes I did like, obviously Truth and Consequences and that mid-season finale, the Coruscant episodes of season 2 are fantastic. Like that's chef's kiss. Any episode with Crosshair, chef's kiss. Like you do want to watch those episodes. I think they're very important and they're good. Yeah, so basically the end of season 2, Omega gets captured by Dr. Hemlock, and that's pretty much where we're at. He's got her, and then the batch is just fucked off, and they don't know what to do.
Yes, as of the ending of season 2, Crosshair and Omega, who has been betrayed by Sid, who everyone said was going to betray them, and then betrayed them, and then was shocked Pikachu face about it. Both Crosshair and Omega are being held in the cloning facility on Mount Tantus. The Bad Batch is determined to try to get her back, but they have no idea how they're going to do that. And that is basically, yeah. Also, Tech died.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I forgot about that one.
So Tech fell off into the abyss, and we didn't actually see a body, but we are told that he is dead.
Right, because Hemlock was like, here's his glasses. He's definitely dead. This is all we could recover. Wink, wink. I'm not a villain, and I'm not lying.
I'm not based on a very obvious real historical monster. Come on. Come on.
On the one hand, I would like to believe that, like, oh, it's just a red herring thing. Like, obviously, Tech is alive. He's probably, when we get to the trailer, he may or may not be this Clone X looks new assassin looking character. I don't think that is him, but maybe. The other thing is maybe his body is being used, but it's not tech anymore. Maybe, but that
That
seems like real ridiculous. I don't know.
there's an episode here called Identity Crisis. I mean that may reference, they may
That could
find
be
out something's
it.
going on with tech, or they did something with they re-put a chip in his brain. I don't know. Let's read these
Yes, let's go
episode
through 'em.
titles out, and then we'll talk about the trailer and the clip that we've got. So the episode titles are Confined, Paths Unknown, Shadows of Tantus, A Different Approach, The Return, Infiltration, Extraction, Bad Territory, The Harbinger, Identity Crisis, Point of No Return, Juggernaut, Into the Breach, Flash Strike, and The Cavalry Has Arrived.
Interesting.
Which I find it interesting that episodes 1 through 3 are presented as like this 3-part arc, and so much of the trailer and the clip is about Crosshair and Omega being in captivity. But
Right.
then episode 7 is called Extraction.
Yeah, so that makes me believe that Omega and Crosshair are not leaving Tantus until episode's up.
That is also my belief. I think they're going to make an attempt in episode 3, and that is going to fail.
Yeah, it seems like
Probably
the
because they're going to
arc.
discuss the plan before they do it. And
Well,
we
of
know
course.
that per the heist rules, you're not supposed to do that. You're not supposed to, if you're a character and you see a camera, do not talk about your heist plan in front of the camera. It will go badly for you.
Yeah, I'm very confused about how the first 3 episodes you were gonna stay on Tantus so long for 3 whole episodes. Like, I genuinely can't figure out how this premiere is gonna be just Omega and Crosshair in
I
Tantus
don't
for
think it
3 episodes.
is. I don't think it
Yeah.
is. There's no way it can be. Though that would be really interesting, and they gave us like an hour and a half of just nothing but Omega and
It would
Crosshair on
basically be a whole
Tantus.
Crosshair
A
Omega
whole
movie.
Crosshair and Omega movie, which would
Yeah.
be wild.
I don't know because I also have a theory like in the opening of the trailer, they're in the I think it's called a Juggernaut, right? The rover thing
Yeah,
or
you
whatever.
want. Yeah, we'll talk about that. We'll go through the trailer in a minute here.
Right, but I just that scene makes me think that that's the opening scene of the episode 1, just because you know how they always do that, like in like with season 2, they did the same thing with the trailer where they were on the beach and
With
it was like,
grabs.
yep, and that was the opening shot of the movie or of season 1 or whatever, and I feel like that's going to
I
be
was
the
in the
same
room at
exact thing.
Celebration when they showed that clip for the first time.
Yeah, I have a feeling that history repeats itself too much, and that's exactly what they're going to do.
Yeah, the
Now,
clip that we
yeah,
have, because we have a clip, it's called Confined, and we have a clip that's basically Omega and Crosshair talking. We can just talk about the clip now.
okay, yeah.
Omega and Crosshair talking, which is probably from episode 1, Confined.
Oh wow, they're so clever with that one.
Yeah, but this is a clip from episode 1, and it's them basically talking about it's Omega sneaking into these vents to go talk to Crosshair, and they have a philosophical discussion about trusting people, and Omega has a shadow that looks like the Crosshair thing on her face, and that's basically the extent of the clip. But we have that clip, and so
Yeah,
that's the clip that they're probably not the opening scene, but definitely a clip
from
that
that
is
first
in
episode,
that
yeah.
episode because it says so in Confined
No,
official
for
clip.
sure, for sure, for sure.
But
Yeah,
I
I'm gonna. It's gonna be interesting to see if they do more than just them in jail. Like, I don't really know what else they can do.
I mean, clearly enough to fit roughly 1 hour and 15 minutes.
I mean, maybe they'll delve more into, what Emery Carr is doing with Omega, like, because I
Yeah,
think,
Emery
they do
is
all that kind of stuff.
mentioned in the
He
clip.
brings her up in
She
the clip.
turns up
Yeah.
in the trailer, and she's mentioned in the clip. So I feel like she's going to have a big role this season. Her reveal to Omega that she's also a clone at the end of season 2, which was meant to be this huge bombshell, but because we had just met the character 5 minutes ago, we were like, "What? What the fuck?"
Yeah, we didn't quite understand why. We're like, who is this girl?
It
Like,
was what's going on.
yeah, so that's gonna be interesting, I think. And then we go into, I think it's 5 and 6. No, I'm sorry, 6 and 7 are on the same day. That's infiltration and extraction. So that's clearly them getting out.
That's probably, we say clearly, but we also are pretty bad at
Well,
calling this when it comes to the Bad Batch.
that's right, because we don't know what that could be anything. That could just be the Bad Batch on a random ass mission, infiltrating and extracting something like random. Like we've seen it before. So I don't know if that's just a red herring, but I mean, if I had to put money on it, if I had to put money on black or red, I'm gonna say that this is probably the episode where they get out.
I'm gonna also guess this is probably the episode where they're gonna get Omega out.
The second episode that stands out to me is episode 9, and
The
don't
Harbinger?
I don't know because that's usually supposed to be like harbinger of death is usually what you would say.
Yes.
So I think that could either be the clone X assassin character, or that could just be talking about Hemlock for some reason, like just because he's like evil. I don't know. Maybe that's like his backstory episode, like or something.
I have genuinely no idea. It also could be Asajj Ventress. We haven't really talked about the fact that Asajj fucking Ventress is in this show yet.
You know what? Because we haven't talked about the trailer yet, but I think that's episode 5.
You think that's episode 5, The Return?
What else would it be? I mean, it has to be that.
Anyway,
Unless she's the harbinger, but
let's talk about the trailer.
okay,
So
let's
the
talk about
trailer opens up. They're in a juggernaut. They're being chased. It's a pretty cool action scene. Fee Genoa is here. Like, she's back, which is cool. I did like her a lot in season 2. Once we got around to like what her whole deal is and like
right.
what her purpose actually is in the narrative and what her character actually is when she's done being mysterious, I was like, I really like her a lot. We get a shot of what looks like a ship approaching Coruscant. Rex and Hunter are having a conversation. Then we get a shot of what looks like the monastery on Teth. Do you remember the monastery on Teth, Bradley? We talked about Teth in one of our things Charles fucked up.
I vaguely remember. I mean, know the name.
You remember the Clone Wars movie?
Are you telling me Stinky is coming back? I'm just kidding.
Yes, Stinky is coming back.
Omega saves Stinky.
Yes. I swear to God, if Stinky's in this, I'm gonna lose my fucking mind.
That would be really fun. As a teen. He's a teen now.
Yes.
He's a teen.
No, we get a shot of the monastery that's the middle of the Clone Wars movie when they're scaling like the side of the rock with up to get to that monastery to try to rescue Stinky. We get a shot of what looks like that monastery. So we're bringing it around full circle.
And I also think that that might be where possibly Asajj shows up. Like, I don't know.
It would be possible given the fact that she was at that monastery in the Clone Wars movie.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's what I think that's why I was thinking like this looks familiar. This is like something that makes sense. But okay, keep going.
Okay, we get a crashed shuttle. We get flashbacks of Tech dying. It's very sad. We get some stormtroopers marching, sad shots of Omega and Crosshair being in captivity. Dr. Hemlock is being evil. Imri Kar is here. So Hunter mentions that Omega's been waiting on them, quote, a long time. Do we think there's a time jump going on here?
I'm gonna say yes. And I'm not going to say it's like a year, 2 years, 3 years. It's not something like that. It might be a couple months, but I don't know if it's going to be like a huge time jump because I don't see how they could do a huge time jump where they are in the timeline wise because, you know, you can't get too close to A New Hope you get, or like Rebels
Right.
really. Like, you got to get it. Like, it has to be like budge right up to that. It can't necessarily go past it.
We know Rex, Gregor, and Wolf are going to end up they're going to end up on that planet that they end up on in Rebels.
And he's looking a little older.
He's looking a little older at that point.
Right. So that's definitely a few years later. So I don't think that this is because do we see Rex in the trailer or do we just hear?
We do. We've seen him
Okay.
a couple of times. I've been skipping over him because we know who Captain Rex is and we know he's
Right.
going to be in the show.
So, but he looks vaguely the same. So I don't think we're quite at the point where he kind of not lets himself go, but he's retired, I guess we'll
Right.
say.
I have a theory about this, but there's another shot I want to bring it up at, so put a pin in that.
Okay.
We get a shot, and obviously I'm skipping over action shots that I don't think have anything in them. We get a shot of Emperor Palpatine arriving on Tantus.
Okay.
We get a couple of shots, actually. He's got what looks like Nala Se, either Nala Se or Lama Su behind him. I think that might be Lama Su behind him. Dr. Hemlock, he's got his Imperial Royal Guards. Pretty sure that is Ian McDiarmid voicing Palpatine again.
Right.
It just sounds like him. Let me see if I can confirm that. It is, in fact, Ian McDiarmid voicing Palpatine again.
Okay, cool.
Oh, I just noticed something interesting on the cast list when I went to check that. Apparently, Nashir Dalal is listed on the cast list for season 3, who plays Vice Admiral Rampart.
Oh,
Also, apparently, Vice Admiral Rampart's first name is Edmund, according to Wikipedia.
don't we just
So
love
we will probably be seeing the
lore?
return of Vice Admiral Edmund Rampart,
Edmund.
the most British name.
I mean, they're all British, so I guess it makes sense.
I mean, all the Imperial officers in the movies are
Yeah.
British. Okay, we get a shot of what looks like a bunch of troopers, and there's a trooper in black armor, and they look like they're maybe in front of that tree that's at the top of the island. So pretty sure the island's getting invaded.
Oh, Pabu or whatever. Yeah.
Pabu, yeah.
Hmm.
Pretty sure Pabu's getting invaded by the Empire. That's definitely happening. Now, I've seen some speculation that this dude might be Tech. I don't think so. I think it's another guy we're going to run into later in the trailer.
So because like I said, I just rewatched it. So there's the episode where they have the assassin that's trying to take out Chuchi, and
Right.
it's just a random clone. They call him Clone X or whatever.
CX.
Yeah, and it's just a random clone. So I feel like this could be another similar situation, just
I
another
think so.
a
I think
random
they've
assassin
taken
clone.
the. Do you remember that really weird scene in season 1? There's that really weird scene where they're walking along in Camino with the clone cadets. And the clone cadets are like, hey, we're going to be soldiers, right? And I think it's Nala Se is like, yes, of course, that's what you were made for, when they're moving everybody over to different facilities.
Yeah,
I think that was set up for this.
I see. It's just the clones that hadn't fully formed
It's
yet,
the
and then
clones
they
that
were
had
like,
not
yeah,
fully matured yet
yeah,
that they increased their programming.
gotcha. And they've turned them into just assassins instead of actual soldiers. That makes sense, honestly. And then it's like almost like an unlimited supply because they just kind of do whatever.
Well, it's using the last of them to command
Right.
these soldiers. Which also, speaking of, we get more action shots, and then they in the subtitles, there's a character who's talking called CX1, and we get a brief shot of what looks like CX1 later on in the trailer. I think that's who this is. Is this a CX1 character?
Okay. So it's just another random clone
It's just another
trooper wand
clone
guy. Is
trooper
this
that's.
is this the one with the flamethrower?
We'll get to that. We'll get to that. Because we also get shots of Finnick Shand and Cad Bane turning up again.
Yes, I
I
love that they're
love
coming
how
back.
I love how everything in the show is starting to come full circle with this season. Like a lot of the stuff that felt out of place in the first 2 seasons is starting to make sense
Right.
for this one. Like Hope was on and Hope was talking about how like everything in season 2, every episode contains something that's going to be relevant. So, irrelevant to the finale of that season. And I do feel like they're bringing in a lot of stuff that they set up in the early seasons. Like the Finnick Shand episode was kind of out of left field in the
Right.
initial season. Here she's coming back again. So we're bringing that full circle. Not
I
that they
wonder
weren't good episodes. They were
Right.
just kind of not connected super hard.
Yeah, I wonder if like they're gonna finally try to connect Book of Boba slightly with this her just not necessarily like be like,
Yeah, where
oh,
is Boba Fett?
right. I wonder if they're gonna not exactly connect it, but they're gonna maybe like hint at it. I don't know. I just feel like Fennec Shand is such a great bridge to have them connect, even though she doesn't meet him until, after Mandalorian or whatever.
Right.
But still, it would make sense to just have her because it's such a small galaxy, as we know, that she just happens to interact with every single one of his brothers and or sisters. That would just be, fate in the galaxy, always working its magical writing fingers. Have Fennec Shand just hang out with the Bad Batch and Omega, and it's just like, yeah, that makes sense. Or Cad Bane being like, God, I hate clones, like
Yeah, I'm very excited to see her, of course, voiced by the incomparable Ming-Na Wen, holder of the double Disney trifecta, badass, all around awesome person. We get a shot of Lama Su, I think, either Lama Su or Nala Se. We get a shot of that CX-1 clone trooper, and then we see Wolf. We get a shot of Commander Wolf. Wolf, you may remember Bradley as that third person that was on
the third
planet.
person.
But he was the commander under Plo Koon. He was the head of the Wolf Pack. He's showing up surrounded by what looks like the Imperial stormtroopers. And it's kind of a weird shot because we have the clone commando. We have 2 of the Revenge of the Sith clones, and then we have a TK trooper.
Huh. Yeah, we're getting really complicated with the different outfits. It's getting hard to like distinguish
Look, Bradley,
like who's
Hasbro
who,
has to
what.
put out Black Series Series for something, and they're not going to put out Black Series for anything anyone cares about.
Right, of course. I.e. Asajj Ventress. Got it.
And then, like, okay, fine. We will talk about this shot. We get a trooper in black armor who, yes, is probably CX1 using a fucking
Yeah,
flamethrower.
it's the same guy for sure.
I see it. I see it with my eyeballs. I know this is to spite me. He does appear to be using a proper flamethrower, not any of that wrist-mounted bullshit.
Yeah, he's using one of the handheld, like you have to pick that shit up. And
Like, you have to pick that shit up. It has a gas tank flamethrower.
Yeah.
So, good for him. He's using the right flamethrower. And then we get this shot of Omega. Bradley, do you have the trailer up in front of you?
I don't have the trailer, but I have screenshots of the.
Do you have the screenshot of Omega, like, pulling back on
Yeah,
the
I do.
throttle? Does her hair look a little bit different to you?
It looks. I can't tell if it's longer or it's just a different style. Like,
So here's my theory based on the hair in this.
okay,
Remember we talked about the time jump?
right.
I think that rather than do a strict traditional time jump, that there's going to be about a year that takes place between seasons 1 and seasons 2, but we're going to cover that year in the first 3 episodes.
Oh, okay.
We are never going to leave Tantus for 3 whole episodes.
And that's the year long.
That's the year-long time jump. We're not going to know what the fuck happened to the Batch. We're not going to know what the fuck happened to Pabu. We're not going to know what the fuck happened to anybody except Omega and Crosshair because they're confined to this facility.
You know what? I'm trying to look at 2 shots of Omega because I'm looking at one where she's being like scanned earlier in the thing, and then I'm looking at this one where she's pulling back. And you're right, the hair looks like more. I don't know if it's unkempt or it looks just more like longer, but I think you're right. I think because
That's
her
my
original
theory.
hair, when she's being scanned or whatever, it looks like that's when she's first captured. Her hair's a little shorter, I guess, and then in the one where she's pulling back, where she looks like she's actually escaping of some kind, it looks a little bit different. I mean, maybe we're just totally reading into this wrong, but I like the theory at least that this is, you're right, it's like a year later and then she's finally getting out, and it looks like she's either getting out on her own power or like she's actually escaping or attempting to escape, at least.
She's attempting to escape. Wrecker says, give us a real challenge. There's some action shots.
He fights an alligator or something, and then it's like
An alligator or something.
Then it's the real stuff.
And then we get more action shots, and then we get the voice that broke the internet.
Yes.
Because we get a gloriously sexy shot of Asajj motherfucking Ventress turning up in her full Dark Disciple getup with her yellow lightsaber, and Hunter and Wrecker looking confused as she charges in. End of trailer.
I have 2 thoughts on this shot because I feel like
I'm surprised you can form coherent thoughts.
Well, see, here's the thing. I don't want to speculate too much, but here I go. So I feel like
I don't want to speculate too much. He says in the episode purely about speculating.
Well, I feel like the trailer is misleading.
A trailer's misleading, Bradley?
Right.
As a trailer misleading people thinking about the Last Jedi trailer?
I don't think that these are the same 2 scenes. I think Hunter and Wrecker looking confused or whatever, and then her like kind of almost charging. I think they're different. I think they're different scenes.
I agree. The lighting is slightly different.
Yeah, they're sewing them together to make it seem like she's attacking Hunter and Wrecker or something. I don't think that. I mean, do I think that she's going to interact with them in some capacity? Yes. I don't think it's this capacity, and it might actually only be Omega that she interacts with. I don't know if she necessarily interacts with the rest of the Bad Batch, because I don't know. I just feel like that's so on brand for Asajj, because they've done a similar story where she meets a little girl and like she's like helping that little girl, and it's just like I feel like this is supposed to either mirror that, or I don't know how lazy they are with the writing, but we'll see. I don't know if they're going to try to do that similar situation. I also don't know what to say because it's just Asajj Ventress, and she's definitely dead, so I don't know what's happening.
She's super dead.
She's super.
But we know
dead.
Death and resurrection is an important thing in the Night Sisters.
Yeah, and they said in the interviews on StarWars.com that
yes, we know about Dark Disciple.
Dark Disciple exists.
No, we're not going to pull a Kanan
Right.
the Last Padawan shit again. We know Dark Disciple happened.
I think people were worried though because of what season 1 did. And
well, and that's the thing too, is there were a lot of people who were very justifiably, in my opinion, concerned about this, because all the way back in 2012 really in 2015 when the reset happened, part of the whole appeal to the story group and having coherency between the different projects and understanding like that rather than say George is going to make his movies and his TV show Nothing else matters. But also, Del Rey's going to publish these books. Dark Horse and Marvel are going to publish these comics. They're going to kind of interconnect and play along with each other, but really not. Part of the appeal was the idea that everything counted.
Right.
That everything was at least going to be coherent within the same universe. And that was the whole pitch of the story group, was it was somebody to say, well, we did this in X comic, so you don't want to override that. And that broken almost immediately with the novelization of The Force Awakens. But there were already some cracks showing. It's a mythology, not a history, and some things, like, you can tell different stories different ways. I accept that. I understand that. But by the same token, I think it is perfectly fair and reasonable for, if you're a fan of a piece of media that is not visual. So if you are a fan of a piece of animation, or not a piece of animation, or not a live action thing, it is perfectly justifiable to be concerned that the thing that you like is going to be completely ignored by other creators at this point.
Yeah.
Because of, what happened with this show. With, the Kanan comics depicting the Kanan story for Order 66, and then this show turning around and doing it. Or Tales of the Jedi working off the same outline as the Ahsoka novel, but kind of contradicting the Ahsoka novel, not just in the broad sense of the story, but in the character of Ahsoka and what Ahsoka goes through in that novel versus the journey she goes on in the Tales of the Jedi episode. I think it's perfectly reasonable for people to look at the return of Asajj Ventress, and the first thing is, Dark Disciple is such a beloved novel. Like, it's such a beloved novel. It is perfectly justifiable in my mind for people to need to know that the creative team is not just going to ignore the events of that novel the way they have ignored other things that don't fit in with the story that they want to tell. And I do get, like, they're telling a story, they want to tell it. And the Kanan scene, it works differently in The Last Padawan than it works in Bad Batch for each different version of the story that they want to tell.
Right.
But at the same time, if you're a fan of that comic and you were deeply immersed in the Rebels lore, turning around and saying, oh no, that didn't count, that feels awful.
Yeah.
As a fan of something, to be told this doesn't matter. That's what Legends fans went through. That's what Legends fans went through when the reset was announced. That exact feeling. That feeling of, oh, okay, so I like this thing, but it doesn't matter anymore. And you can look at, toxic Legends fans bitching about this on the internet. Certainly they do. But there's also a lot of people who are fans of Legends who are not toxic, who felt the same way when it happened. And so I think it's perfectly reasonable to be trepidatious of Asajj Ventress showing up and them needing to immediately go on StarWars.com and say, no, we know about Dark Disciple. We're not going to override Dark Disciple. Because there was huge, I want to say outcry, concerns were raised when she turned up in the trailer. But they have promised that they're going to respect the storytelling that was done by, George Lucas's daughter.
Yeah. I mean, I can't say that I'm not worried, but I also, like, if they're so adamant about, like, at least in the official StarWars.com interview thing, where it's not like some...
It's the only piece of information we know that in the, like, literally they put out the article and it just says the Bad Batch season 3 is coming out on this date. Also, yes, we know about Dark Disciple.
And they made a point to say that.
They made a point. They made a
that's
point
like a
to be clear that they knew about the Dark Disciple.
Yeah, I mean, I have faith in the creators because I think they genuinely care, and they do, like, if they cared enough just to even mention Dark Disciple, I feel like that's enough for me to be like, okay, benefit of the doubt. They're clearly at least thinking about the novel, and whether or not it's going to contradict / recanonize / retcon things, it may just adjust things. I don't know if it's, or it may be, I hope it's not in the same vein as Ahsoka in Tales of the Jedi, because that was just a very, like, simplified, like, oversimplified version of the Ahsoka novel. So I hope they don't do that here, or they're like an oversimplified version of Dark Disciple, just because it's such a good story. And, like,
I don't think they will.
I mean, to the point where, like, Tales of the Jedi should just do Dark Disciple as, like, a 3-episode arc or something, and then just, like, do the entire
like a mini
thing.
Version.
Yes, I mean,
I do
that's
hope,
how good it is.
I do want a comic adaptation, or I eventually want an 8-episode animated adaptation or something of Dark Disciple. That would be nice. Maybe tinfoil hat conspiracy theory. If you remember, all the way back in season 1, we talked about this. Some of the planets and stuff that turn up in the Bad Batch turned up in Dark Disciple, and they were just reusing probably pre-production work that they had done on Dark Disciple for Bad Batch season 1. So, like, maybe what comes next for Star Wars animation is they'll do the 8 episodes of Dark Disciple.
Maybe.
I don't know how you would do that, though, because the way the book is written, the book does such an excellent job of getting inside Quinlan Voss and Asajj Ventress's heads.
Right. And that's part of the appeal of it
It's
is
part of the
that you're
appeal.
inside their head. Yeah.
Like when I went, not to talk about myself for an extended period of
Oh, of
time,
course not.
uh, the first Beach House Studios book was adapted from a pilot script that I wrote. And one
Okay.
of the things I realized when I went to read that book, when I went to write that book, was how different it was going to be because you could get inside the characters' heads. The trade off is you don't see it visually in the same way you would, but you
Right.
get so much more character opportunity when you're inside a character's head and how does the character think and how does the character perceive things. And I think an adaptation of Dark Disciple would be the same way. There would be trade offs for it. We would not get that, like, we wouldn't get that character, those character thoughts that we get that make the book so good, which is why Christy Golden is such an excellent writer because she's really, really good at getting inside, particularly a fantasy character or a heroic character's heads. Looking at you fixing Jaina Proudmoore. Thank you, Christy, for fixing Jaina. You were doing the Lord's work.
Yeah, the only way I would accept them doing a Dark Disciple animated thing would be to still have the voiceovers. Like, I know it would be weird, but I feel like you would have to have animation happening on screen and then just ADR voiceover where she's just kind of talking in her head. And like, that's just, I would have to have that. Like, otherwise, I don't know if it would work as well. It would be kind of not, I don't want to say boring, but it would just be like way faster. And I don't think it would have the same emotional impact. So, it just depends.
I don't know. We've tangented off of the Bad Batch into a hypothetical
Anyway,
Dark
I
Disciple
was gonna say, well,
adaptation.
back to the Bad Batch, but
Back to the Bad Batch. Bradley, do you have any sort of final thoughts on the reveal of everything we know up to 3 days before about the Bad Batch season 3?
let's see. So I'm thinking like, okay, my here's my thought process of how the final season is, my theory of how it's gonna go.
Okay.
We're gonna have our little introspective with Omega and Crosshair, and then we're gonna get back to the Bad Batch. They're gonna be like, oh, we gotta get Omega, and they eventually will probably try to get her out, but they need help. So they're like, let's go try to work with these bounty hunters over here, and let's work with Asajj Ventress randomly for no reason over here, and somehow that works too. And then they're all gonna like culminate this army of friends and a quote unquote bad batch of people together. I'm trying to play on words here because they're all
I
bad
see what you're
people.
doing.
And, and then that's what theoretically the last episode's called The Cavalry Has Arrived. So I'm assuming with the help of Fennec Shand and Bane, Cad Bane and Asajj Ventress and Fee Genoa, and, I maybe even we'll get a redemption for Sid. Who knows? But
I do think Sid's not gone. I
right.
do think
Well, no
Sid's
one's
coming
ever really
back.
gone,
No one's ever really gone.
i.e. Tech. But yeah, I don't know. And with this one, I don't have as many crazy theories like with some of our other shows, like of people showing up. I mean, my only crazy theory is we'll get a Boba cameo. I don't know if he'll show up in like a capacity of helping or meeting them or doing anything significant, but I feel like to have an entire show about these clones and then even mentioning how like Boba is the alpha or whatever clone is interesting, and then not even being like, well, because you have Omega, and it's like, well, then wait, why are we not gonna ever talk about Boba Fett ever again? Like, he's clearly important to some kind of cloning procedure. Also, I feel like with Omega, there was an interview about how, the season was supposed to end one way and now it's ending a different way. And so now I'm curious of what that even means. Like, does that mean that they thought maybe they were gonna make Omega force sensitive finally, but then they kind of changed their minds and they were like, nah, we're not doing that storyline anymore, because in the broader spectrum of like where where stuff happens after the Bad Batch, like these characters clearly aren't very important anymore, at least in the broader sense of the galaxy, because we don't ever hear about them ever again after this, because obviously this is the most recent thing. But the only people who are making it, we know are making it out, are Rex and his group. And so
Rex, Gregor, Wolf, Fennec makes it out, obviously.
right, but
We
that's
know
really
that,
all we know,
yeah,
other than Palpatine. But other than like,
Palpatine definitely
yeah.
makes it out. Tarkin.
Yeah, so I'm not quite sure like where they're going with this season. I do feel like, I'm hoping, at least my thoughts and prayers prayers and hopes for this season are, it is just going to be like thing reveal after reveal, action after action, thing after thing, because you can't have like a stale moment in this season. I feel like there's so much they need to wrap up before, we get to, because maybe they're still hinting at the whole Force sensitive clone thing that Mandalorian kind of set up and refined, and it's like, but then they didn't really even go into it that much, and so I'm hoping that
No, because
Tantus
Mando
really.
season 3 dropped the ball super hard.
Right. So I'm hoping that this rectifies that by picking the ball back up and being like, no, guys, this is genuinely how Palpatine is able to make Force sensitive clones. Here
This
it
is an
is,
entire
definitively.
series explaining how
Yeah.
Palpatine returned.
Right. Exactly. And I'm
This
hoping
is
that
the
they find this.
somehow. This is the somehow in somehow Palpatine returned.
That's my major theory for this season is that they're going to explain that, I guess. I guess that's my biggest what if.
I keep coming back to the name of the finale episode, which is "The Cavalry Has Arrived," which is the first line that a member of the Bad Batch delivers on screen. Way back in the Bad Batch episode of the Clone Wars, when they first show up, the very first line that is delivered by a member of the Bad Batch is Wrecker saying, "The cavalry has arrived." And you know me, I love a ending that parallels the beginning. It's my favorite thing. So to have that there, much of the season, like the talk around it and what we're seeing of the trailers and how everything's building up, it feels like the end of an era.
Right.
It feels like a culmination to an era. The death of the Clone Wars. The end of the Clone Wars. This has been a show about the end of the Clone Wars. So, or rather, the Clone Wars was about the end of the Clone Wars. This was about the ending of the Clone Wars. This was about how that ending happens, because they didn't just flip a switch overnight and become the Empire.
Right.
Like, that had to go through a process. How do we get from a republic to an empire? And that's a process that takes time, and it impacts people. And you have people who served the old republic being swept out into the cold because there's no place for them in the new empire. And so I'm really looking forward to seeing how this wraps up in a satisfying way. I'm really interested because a lot of the stuff in the trailers and a lot of stuff seems like it's building on what came before. And so I'm just very excited. This is actually topical because this episode is coming out right before the finale. I am really excited to see how this ends, and I'm really excited for this to end. But not in like a negative way. Like, I'm okay on the show. I'm not super enthusiastic about it, but I also don't hate it with every fiber of my being. But I love when I can look at the completeness of a story. And a story that's been told with purpose from beginning to end and say, okay, this is what they were going for. This is the story they told. And so I'm looking forward to seeing that in satisfactorily. Or not. We don't know as of recording this, and we don't know as of you listening to this how this ends. But I assume it goes well. Everything will be fine. Okay, pluggables.
I work on a number of production shows in Atlanta. The most recent of my shows is The Circle Season 6. That's now on Netflix. And you should catch up with that before the finale next week.
You can also find me on the Star Wars TTRPG podcast For Light and Dice. That's a TTRPG set in the High Republic era. And you can also find a series of gay thriller novels that I write on Kindle called Beach House Studios. Beach House is one word with one H. That was the fastest I've done our pluggables so far.
I like it.
All right, Bradley, run the socials. Let's get into the Bad Batch finale for us. And the real, I don't know, time means nothing. This episode is the world between worlds. Time means nothing. Everything is irrelevant. Run the socials. Thank you for listening to this episode of Gold Squadron Gaze. Did Charles fuck something up? Email us at goldsquadrongaze@gmail.com to let us know. You can also find us on Twitter at @GoldSquadGaze, and you can find us on TikTok and Instagram at @GoldSquadronGaze. You can also find us on YouTube at our Gold Squadron Gaze YouTube channel, where we post full episodes of this show. Finally, if you liked the show, don't forget to rate us and give us a review on your favorite podcast platform. That allows other people to find our show. As always, thank you for listening to Gold Squadron Gaze, and we'll see you next week. You can watch insert name of show that Bradley is currently giving his life to here on insert network, in which you can watch the show where Bradley has been slaving away for probably months.